lined up, and we're talking to Lou. We're going to be actually making a new contract extension offer to Tevin for when his contract expires for big money, and that's the next step for him now. Is to say, okay, because we could have signed him on a 10-fight deal back then, but really his value has increased so much that what he would have signed for wouldn't be the right deal right now for him, So we need to make sure that those unification fights attract big numbers for Tevin Farmer, because they're risky fights. Like the mandatory fight against Frenoir, no disrespect to Frenoir, is a fight that Tevin Farmer should look very good in and win comfortably. The Bachelt fight is a fight that is a war, and is one where you could lose your belt. So you have to be paid accordingly. That's the key. So, in terms of how his life's changed, I hope he's getting recognised a lot more. He's had a hometown fight. He knows when he's fighting. He's making great money. So, I believe he's happy.
That said, would you say Canelo made a mistake? Because you just touched on how you could have signed on a 10-fight deal. Well, that's exactly what Canelo did.
Because that's a lot of money to turn down.
The money situation is way different.
Yeah.
He already had star power.
Yeah.
So
his stock's not really going to go up too much from here. Whereas Tevin, when we signed Tevin, he's like that guy where the hardcore boxing fans know him, but the general public don't. Now we had a nice gate in Philadelphia. We'll return there later on in the year, and his stock is much higher than it was when we signed him.
What's a bigger fight? Is it Tank or is it Lomachenko?
I mean, I think from a publicity standpoint, from a hype standpoint, it's Tank all day long, because these two don't particularly like each other. It's been running for years and years. Lomachenko is a great fight, but he's up at lightweight. He makes super feather fine for the moment. So any of the champions, really, I think his aim is to unify. And look, we'll keep putting the pressure on Tank Davis. At the end of the day, if he doesn't fight Tevin, and then Tevin goes to unify the division, then the game changes, and we want him to accumulate belts. One day, I'd love that fight to be the undisputed fight.
Eddie, I know you probably touched on this, but if I could just get your comments on how Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz came about.
Quite simply, we looked at the best heavyweights in the world. Luis Ortiz, we made a huge offer to Luis Ortiz. They talked a good game, and they got found out. Andy Ruiz, Trevor Bryan, Pulev, Michael Hunter, all these guys. I had to go with the guy that in my heart I believed would give the fans the best entertainment on June 1. The best fighter that would come and let his hands go, that wouldn't wilt under pressure, that wouldn't come to survive, that wouldn't just come for the payday. And when I spoke to Andy Ruiz, if Andy Ruiz was built like Anthony Joshua, aesthetically, he would be a massive star, because he's a Mexican heavyweight that can really fight. Unfortunately, he looks more like me in a pair of shorts, right? So people look at him from the casual fans and go, oh, this guy can't beat Anthony Joshua. Speak to people in boxing. Speak to Oscar De La Hoya, speak to Canelo, speak to Jesse Vargas. They've all come up to me today and gone, your boy better get ready for that fight, because he's a handful, So that's a good fight. For Joshua, he remains the same. He will fight absolutely anyone. He does not care. He wants the challenge. It's a banana skin against Andy Ruiz, because everybody will be looking at it saying, oh, he's going to knock this guy out. I spoke to Ruiz this morning. He's so pumped for this fight. We're going to do a press conference here on Saturday with Andy. He'll be in town. You guys can see. He's up for this fight. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about politics. It was just give me a chance to seal my legacy, to become Mexico's first world heavyweight champion.
When was it finalized? When was it finalized?
It was signed yesterday.
It was signed yesterday.
Yeah, but we agreed terms maybe 3 days before that. But
you didn't get him a Snickers deal?
He should have a Snickers deal. I think he needs to speak to his agent. I think he's a great story. He's like one of those guys. Like I think he done an interview yesterday who says he's going to win this fight for all the fat people around the world.
So did you speak to Al about it? Because Andy's with PBC.
I spoke to Tom Brown, who is his promoter, and Luis de Cubas, who works with Al, who I'm very good friends with. They didn't stand in the way of the opportunity. It wasn't easy, but
why wasn't it easy?
Just because it's never easy to make a unified world heavyweight title fight, especially when you're 5 weeks out. He just fought. But Andy was the one. Andy sent me a message on Instagram. He said, please give me this fight. I will beat Anthony Joshua. I know I can. And that was really the start of it, where I then spoke to Tom Brown and Luis de Cubas. We finalised the details, and Andy signed yesterday.
So all that talk then with all that talk then when people say, oh, Al's blocking fights, it's difficult.
Depends on the fighter. So it's pretty straightforward. So it's not Al's fault, right? But every promoter has to make sure that when they sign a network deal, they keep their top talent on the network. right? So Andy Ruiz is not Keith Thurman, is not Manny Pacquiao, is not Deontay Wilder. So you get to a stage with someone like Andy Ruiz where he will go to Al and say, please give me this chance. Like, don't let me lose this opportunity. Al will go and speak to Fox, who just aired him last Saturday with probably 1 million audience, and say, just to let you know, this kid's had an opportunity to fight for the world heavyweight title. We shouldn't stand in his case. In that situation, as DAZN would do, where actually Tevin's a good example of that as well. You know, I would have to go to DAZN and say, look, Tank Davis will only fight Tevin if it's on Showtime. They may turn around and go, no, we don't want that. They wouldn't, because I would tell them, you can't ruin this opportunity for this kid. And that would be the same instance with Andy Ruiz, right? Now you get the bigger guys, Al can't afford, and to be honest, like, we all can't afford. Like, I can't, if Anthony Joshua signs a long-term deal with DAZN, it's very difficult for me to take a fight on another platform. That's just business. So when you say, oh, it's great that Al let him take his fight, yeah, he did let him take his fight, so he should do as well. But it's a different scenario when you're talking about Errol Spence or you're talking about those kind of guys, because, and I don't blame Al in that sense, you've got to do the right job for the fighter, but he also has to say, well, you've signed with my network, so that's where you should be boxing. But in the Andy Ruiz instance, how can you let a guy who's now going to make millions of dollars achieve a dream of trying to win the world heavyweight title? Andy feels he should be world champion. Andy feels he beat Joseph Parker in New Zealand. It was a very, very close fight. So, you know, we thank those guys for allowing this fight to happen. So they should. But they, you know, could they have blocked it? Yeah, maybe. I mean, there would have been a.
So with those marquee guys that you're talking about, then how do we get around that and make these fights happen?
I don't know. It's just boxing.
It would be pay-per-view.
The way you get around it is for the fight to become so big you can't ignore it. Pacquiao against Pacquiao against Mayweather.
That's the whole DAZN streaming. It's not pay-per-view. That's like a whole no thing. Like that goes against the business philosophy. So that's
going to be a big problem. I'm talking more about Crawford against Spence, fights like that. Where
Wilder, Joshua.
Yeah, well, Wilder hasn't got a network deal, and nor has Joshua. It's likely Joshua will sign a long-term deal with DAZN. It's likely that Wilder will do the same with Showtime. That's when you have to come together. I will not allow Joshua to sign a network deal that will prevent him from taking an undisputed fight. I think the only person right now who signed a network deal that will prevent him fighting on other networks is Tyson Fury. But he doesn't really care. Like, he's won the World Heavyweight Championship. If you said to Tyson, like, do you want to be the undisputed champion? Yeah, he does. But he also wants to make as much money as possible. That's why he's making a lot of money for fighting Tom Schwartz. So, and turned down an ordered fight with Deontay Wilder. So you have to practice what you preach in that respect.
So that said, Shelly Finkel just recently spoke to the Boxing Voice and said how they don't have plans to fight AJ this year.
Now the Boxing Voice that have given Anthony Joshua a lot of stick over the years. Surely when you hear an interview like that, you have to say to Shelly, like, hold on. We've been backing Deontay Wilder, saying he wants the Joshua fight, he wants to be undisputed. Here is a guy that for years and years and years has said one face, one name, one champion. All I want is one heavyweight world champion. All I want is this. And you let a guy come out and say, no, we've got plans, we'll talk about that in a year's time. A year's time? Like, I can't understand. If you're Deontay Wilder, why would you not fight Anthony Joshua for double, treble the money you're making anywhere else? It's there for him. You know, that's like Tevin turning down a fight for 3 or 4 times what he's making at the moment to be the undisputed champion. It wouldn't happen. So why is this happening?
Don't you think maybe he was saying that to kind of stir the pot because he called back?
No, I don't. Because I know he's not. Because I know that Ortiz has already been promised the Wilder fight. I know that Konaki has already been promised the Wilder fight. So we're not just talking about 2020, we might be talking about 2021 when Wilder's available. It's bullshit for the sport of boxing, it really is. And it's annoying because certain people without the brain capacity to understand what is happening presume that Anthony Joshua doesn't want to fight Deontay Wilder. You couldn't be more wrong. You could not be more wrong. This guy will fight anybody. And he was ready to fight Wilder a year ago, and he'll be ready to fight him in 2 years if he has to. But why can't we make it next? After Ruiz, after Brazil, if we win, why cannot we make that fight next? I don't understand.
Do you truly think that Wilder is avoiding the
Well,
fight?
then take control of your own career. You know, he always says in interviews, you know, oh, these promoters don't let you do this and you've got to be in control of your own career. If you want the fight, take control of your own career. Have the balls to step up and say, guys, I really appreciate everything you're doing for me, but I want Anthony Joshua. I want the undisputed fight. Don't let people talk you into, oh, no, have another fight there. That's good. Make the fight the fans want to see. We can't make it any more plain and obvious. You know, so whether Shelly's trying to stir the pot, I don't think he is, because I know behind the scenes all these other guys have been offered the shot. You know, when we're speaking to Konaki about taking the Joshua fight, no, I'm fighting Wilder. What do you mean you're fighting Wilder? I've been told that fight's done. He's going to fight Ortiz, then he's going to fight me. And we're sitting there like, what? So you want to fight a guy you've already beaten and Adam Konaki before you want to start thinking about the undisputed fight, the biggest fight in boxing, bar none. There's nothing bigger.
Eddie, how can we have more unity and less division in